An AI agent just ran an entire ransomware attack from start to finish. No human at the keyboard. In one moment, it went from a failed login to a working fix in 31 seconds. And the researchers who caught it say, the cost of pulling this off is now whatever it costs to run an agent. Here's what you need to know today. Welcome to Amar Talks Tech. Today, the first fully autonomous AI ransomware attack, Anthropic overtaking OpenAI on revenue, a Chinese model closing in on the frontier, and the UN's first real attempt to govern AI. Stay to the end. One of these stories quietly rewrites who's actually winning the AI race. Security researchers say they've documented the first ransomware attack run end-to-end by an AI. Ransomware has always needed a skilled human driving the intrusion. That assumption just broke. Sysdig documented a case it calls JADEPUFFER, describing it as the first known agentic ransomware executed end-to-end by an LLM. The attack began by exploiting a missing authentication vulnerability in Langflow, an open-source LLM framework, then pivoted to a production database server running MySQL and Alibaba's Nakos platform. According to InfoSecurity magazine, the agent encrypted all 342 Nakos configuration items and deleted the originals. And the encryption key was generated randomly and never saved, meaning even paying the ransom can't recover the data. InfoSecurity magazine also reports the agent went from a failed login to a working fix in 31 seconds. The scary part isn't a rogue superintelligence, it's the mundane efficiency. An agent chaining exploitation, lateral movement, and encryption without a human turns a specialist crime into a script. Sysdig's Michael Clark put it bluntly, the skill floor for running ransomware has dropped to whatever it costs to run an agent. If expertise is no longer the bottleneck, the volume of attacks is limited only by compute. That changes the math for every defender. On the secondary market, Anthropic just leapfrogged OpenAI. For years, OpenAI was the default frontier leader. The scoreboard is shifting to revenue and valuation. According to AOL.com, buyers on secondary trading platforms have pushed Anthropic's valuation to $1 trillion, more than $100 billion above OpenAI's market cap. The same report says Anthropic's revenue grew from $9 billion at the end of 2025 to over $30 billion by the end of March. On the platform Hive, Anthropic shares reportedly surged 211% to around $900 over 3 months, while OpenAI shares rose 8.5%. And per Bloomberg News, institutional investors trying to sell $600 million of OpenAI shares couldn't find buyers as of the end of March. Benchmarks used to define the pecking order, now it's cash and liquidity. A buyer stampede into one name and a buyer drought in another tells you where the smart money thinks durable revenue lives, and that signal is louder than any leaderboard. If the market's confidence is moving, expect talent, partnerships and pricing power to follow it. A Chinese model is now closing the gap with US frontier labs, and it's a fraction of the price. The US-China AI race is usually framed as America ahead. Cost and adoption data complicate that. According to CNBC, Z.ai's GLM 5.2, released in June, saw the fastest adoption of any model Vercel tracked in 2026. Daily token volume up about 27x, and customers up about 80x in its first full week. CNBC also reports that US companies' share of tokens on Chinese models via OpenRouter has stayed above 30% each week since February 8th, peaking at 46%, versus an 11% average the prior year. Open-source Chinese models can run 60% to 90% cheaper than leading US models, per OpenRouter's Justin Somerville. And in June, startup Lindy moved all its traffic from Claude to DeepSeek, expecting to save millions. When a model is good enough and dramatically cheaper, developers don't wait for permission. The frontier lead in raw capability matters less if the practical choice for real workloads is a Chinese open-weight model at a tenth of the cost. Price, not just power, may decide which models actually get deployed at scale, including by American companies. The UN just opened its first global dialogue on how to govern AI. Until now, AI rules have been made country by country, company by company. This is the first multilateral attempt. The inaugural Global Dialogue on AI Governance opened in Geneva on Monday, mandated by the UN General Assembly. According to ChinaDailyAsia.com, The two-day event drew over 4,000 delegates from more than 170 governments, tech firms, academia and civil society at the Palexpo Convention Center. Per UNESCO, it's co-chaired by El Salvador's and Estonia's UN representatives, following structured global consultation since January. China's industry minister Li Lecheng led its delegation and, per ChinaDailyAsia.com, proposed priorities including fair and inclusive development, plus 200 AI training programs for Global South countries over 5 years. Who writes the rules matters as much as the technology. China's pitch, training programs and inclusive development aimed at the Global South, is a bid for influence over the countries that will adopt this tech but never build it. Governance is becoming a form of soft power. The framework that comes out of rooms like this could shape which models the developing world runs for a decade. Notice the pattern. AI is getting cheaper to weaponize, cheaper to run, and cheaper to adopt, all at once. That collapsing cost is why an agent can now run ransomware, why US firms are jumping to Chinese models, and why the world suddenly wants rules. Capability isn't the constraint anymore, cost and control are. So today, autonomous ransomware, Anthropic passing OpenAI, a cheap Chinese frontier model, and the UN scrambling to write rules. Which of these worries you most? The attacks, the money, or who controls the tech? Tell me below. Subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow when we look at whether any of these governance efforts have real teeth.